Mhm. So we got some breathing room.
That's right.
Got elbow.
Okay, we're all set.
Ready?
Good to go.
Call to order the January 5th, 2022 meeting of the City of Bowling Green's Planning Commission. Thank you for coming to the meeting tonight in such inclement weather. It's not pleasant outside. Jamie, would you please call the roll?
Here.
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 Here. Here.
Okay, thank you, Jamie. The minutes from our December 1 meeting have been distributed ahead of time to all the members of the commission. Are there any additions or corrections or deletions that anybody found?
No.
All right, then the minutes are approved as they were distributed to us. Next on our schedule is lobby visitation. It's an opportunity for anybody who wants to come and speak to us about any subject that's not on tonight's agenda. Is there anybody who wishes to address the commission tonight? All right, doesn't appear so, so we'll close lobby visitation. That gets us to the main item on our agenda tonight, which is a public hearing for a rezoning request. It's a rezoning request for 20.71 acres located along South Dunbridge Road, just north of 525 South Dunbridge Road, and identified as parcel number B07-511-2800000150000 from A1 agricultural zoning classification to R4 multiple family residential high density zoning classification. Whitson Properties LLC is the applicant. You want to start with the staff report, Heather?
Yes, that'd be great. So this is comprised of one parcel, currently zoned A1 agricultural. The request to change it to R4 multiple family residential high density. Of course, no address yet. It's right now vacant land that is farmed. The property owner is Whitson Properties LLC. I gave you a aerial map of the property and then also the adjoining zoning classifications. Also, the other applicant is Cash Wagner and Associates. All the procedure requirements for the request have been met, which is under section 150.111 of the ordinances, which requires a sign be placed at the site announcing the request, and then all the adjoining property owners mailed, and of course, a classified ad in the newspaper that is printed. So I gave you a copy of the current zoning, what's allowed there under A1 agricultural, and then the proposed zoning R4 multiple family, gave you a copy of that. Also gave you a comparison of the bulk and density regulations, so A1 versus R4. Obviously, the biggest difference is the use. So residential is allowed in agricultural, but single family versus multiple family. And the difference would be that there is a maximum lot coverage in R4 and not in A1, and then the height's a little bit taller in R4, along with the frontage being reduced 60 feet from 100. And then the front yard, it would be 25 feet in R4 versus 50 in the current zoning. So as far as proposed use, the application said that the applicant would like to construct a multifamily apartment complex. As far as public improvements, those are all available. We have a 16-inch water main on the west side of Dunbridge, 27-inch sanitary sewer also on the west side of Dunbridge, and then we have the drainage ditch on the west side also for the stormwater. And electrical is available on the east side of Dunbridge. There are currently no sidewalks along the frontage. However, that would be a requirement as part of any new development. And as you recall, with a project we recently had, we had asked for the 10-foot multi-use path that will work well once that's done. So we would want the same thing if this were approved. For traffic, we don't have any information on that yet, but that would be part of any new development to follow the city's access management policies and guidelines. For example, it does call for a wider right-of-way on Dunbridge, so that would be part of any new development to deed that additional right-of-way. Again, I gave you that map with adjacent zoning. So to the north is B2 commercial. To the east is actually still in Center Township. and that is zoned industrial there. And then it's zoned to the south, I-1 institutional. And as you recall, back in 2020 already, hard to say 2022 now. So back in 2020, the property where there's currently assisted living being constructed was rezoned to I-1 from agricultural. And then to the west side is zoned S4 Planned Business Park, which is undeveloped land and farmland right now. And that's a little unique because they have a certain zoning classification called S4 that is allowed to have industrial, commercial, and multifamily uses there. So as far as the recommendation, it was a little bit tough with this report because we didn't have a whole lot of information that we would normally get with the request. So that was part of, I think, a lot of the comments is trying to look at the opportunities it brings and potentially some questions that would be helpful to have more information to. So I looked at the 7 Bowling Green principles. We looked at the, of course, part of the land use plan that we know well. We looked at those principles, and again, it was kind of hard with not a lot of information, but certainly making more housing choices. That's one of the principles that I would say would be met. So a broad housing spectrum. A lot of them just didn't apply because again, it's not really part of the core of the community where the land use plan does focus on. So also in the land use plan, you have this actual legend and map towards the back of that document that does call for it to be light manufacturing / assembly, which includes service and commercial uses. So that map was really the only thing in the land use plan that we could pull out that really addresses that area of the city. Community action plan, same story there, really that's outside of the boundaries of that plan. So there really wasn't anything to really compare that to. So again, overall, it was a little bit challenging to review this one. But I think as far as meeting some of the needs, again, the principle of broad housing spectrum is one of them. And then city often hears that housing is a critical need. So this change would definitely increase the availability of housing. We just don't know, again, really, the density and how much that would be. It would provide easy access for vehicles commuting to a job, whether it be I-75, State Route 105, or Route 6. Maybe it would attract additional workforce. A lot of those things we don't really know for sure, but that could be an opportunity. It would be similar use to the Copper Beach townhomes that is further south from here, that's zoned R3. That's about 200 units though, so we do know that much for that use. Again, I pointed out the setback differences. There would be a 40% maximum lot coverage versus there isn't any right now in agricultural. Also, again, it would have potential to bring more residents to the town, which would be east of I-75. That's been a slow growth area as far as it's sat stagnant for a while, at least commercially. Why Woodbridge, though, recently has seen a lot of development for sure. That's definitely increased growth. So again, this new development would improve connectivity that we're trying to fill in as that assisted living facility is built. That would get filled in along with that additional right of way. Also, I know it can be hard. We hear that a lot in our office to find a large parcel to have a seller willing to sell for that particular use. But as far as some questions and cautions, again, back to the future land use plan, the map was clear that it does focus on light manufacturing assembly with the commercial and service oriented use. Maybe there is a market study that's been done that shows that there's an interest. Maybe we would know more so the target market for this development. High density could definitely bring additional traffic. So you could see that as a positive or you can see it as a negative depending on, how you look at that. Also, would clearly be more of a transportation for vehicles rather than really commuting with your pedestrians or bicycles, at least right now. The capacity of the school system, that's always something to consider anytime you look at a high density development, are they able to absorb that? There really is no R4 multifamily around the area, but I give the disclaimer that really there's not a lot of R4 zoning in the entire city. So to be fair, it was really R3 is the majority of what's zoned for apartments around here. So again, just wanted to give you that information. We said there's approximately 16% of acreage in the city zoned for the R3, where only about 0.8% is zoned R4. So definitely a gap there. So in looking at the new zoning code, which you saw a draft of some of the sections, there is the potential that the R4 would not exist any longer if that does get passed. So I want to make sure that was pointed out that again, I think part of it goes back to the data of we don't have a lot of R4 zoning. So has that really served the city well as a zoning classification over the years? So we thought it was a good thing to really consider eliminating that in the future. So I did give you a copy towards the back of the packet, Exhibit C, that compares the R3 and the R4, and then the new potential R3. And I don't want to be confusing, but again, I just wanted to lay out all that information so you had an idea of what the differences could be. Another consideration is that there are other properties in the city already zoned for multifamily use, and maybe these have been explored. We just don't know that information yet. It's also at the periphery of the city, outside of any existing neighborhood or very close to many destinations. So again, it's just one of those land use plan principles that really pushed for a lot of the core development and gathering towards destinations. So again, I think a lot of this can be viewed as positives. Maybe it's just, I hate to say the word negative, but just looking at some opportunities and how some of those questions can be answered. But I think at this point in time, staff report right now is just neutral. We're not really sure, again, if we had more information, where to point you to. So we give you pictures of the site. Obviously not a whole lot to see there right now with the bare ground, but you will see that the assisted living facility to the south, some pictures of that under construction since it's adjacent. And then of course we give you the map again. And then I gave you a copy too, using pictometry, the different views you can see. Just sometimes they're a lot better to see the whole parcel than taking pictures. And then a copy of the application. And then again, a copy of that exhibit that compares the different multifamily zoning districts. So I think that's it, unless I can answer any specific questions.
Are there any questions for Heather? All right, well, let's move on and see if there's any testimony from the applicants. Is anyone representing the petitioner here tonight? Would you like to speak to us, please? Tell us a little bit about what you have planned. Identify yourself, your name.
My name's Nathan Wagner, Cash Wagner and Associates. We're an engineering firm and I'm the civil engineer of record. I'm here to talk about the project and also represent the developer, which is Management Resources Development is what their management arm goes by. They are based out of East Lansing. They develop over I'm gonna say the eastern 2/3 of the country, but primarily right now they're concentrating around the greater Toledo area, eastern Michigan area. They're proposing a market rate project. It's not a subsidized project. And what's unique about these guys is they have a resident manager on site that lives there and works there. They have full-time groundskeepers and maintenance personnel, to maintain their projects inside and out. They do their own market research. They do their own construction. They don't have construction crews, but they manage the construction, and they also own the projects for long term. So they don't flip them and walk away from town. They stay active in the community for long term. I don't work directly for them. I'm a consultant, but I've been working for them for several years, and I've only seen them when we get to this stage and they recognize that a market's there. I've only seen them walk away, and that's one time, and that's because of a factory shut down in a small rural community. Their target market is, like I said, it's market rate. It's not the subsidized. It's not student housing. It's more of a young professional that may be moving into town, maybe wants to move into town and can't find housing. Maybe they need to come get a job here. They want to live here, live in an apartment for a few years before they buy a house. Maybe it's a transient worker that may just be here for a couple of years, working for a company that brought them in short term. They also do some corporate housing where they, a corporation may rent some units for 6 months, a year, and then they furnish them and allow them to use them.
Do you have any idea what size project we're talking about? How many apartments
Yeah.
you want to build?
Yeah. This is, let's kind of scan this concept plan, but it's 8 buildings, be 288 units. And I know there was some discussion about an R3 versus an R4. The primary reason, I think density wise, we would fit in an R3. We asked for an R4 because of height, because we're looking at a 3-story product. I will share, this is kind of a reference letter we got from, if you know where Village of Dundee. We started a project up there, small project, 144 units, and that was the only vision that these developers had, was a smaller project. Dundee encouraged them to add on, and now they're up to, I think, 470 units. But that kind of references maybe some concerns you guys might have about, you know,
You guys have any inches of your previous builds?
I've got,
I'm sure it wouldn't be necessarily exactly the same.
here's a recent rendering. Still don't like it yet, but it's a working order.
Any other questions for Mr. Wagner it is?
Yes.
Sure. Do you know what the size of the units would be? Or do you have a couple different layouts? but-
They're almost, all the units are 2-bedroom except for one unit. And it's a single bedroom because it's adjacent to the mechanical room
In each building?
in each building. Yeah. So there's one single bedroom unit, and then there'd be 35 2-bedroom units. They don't like to get bigger than, the 3-bedroom. It kind of invites multiple families to stay in one unit type thing. The 2-bedroom allows, for single people or couples without kids to still have an office space to work in. Anything else?
You said they do their own market research. Sounds like you don't have that, but is the idea that if you're at this stage that they've determined there's a need for
Yes.
this particular type of housing?
Yes. That's kind of why I brought up the idea that they've only walked away one time, because
Right.
they've gotten to that point on the market study that they know the needs here.
Okay.
Um,
You wouldn't happen to have then as because I don't have any idea at what capacity other similar places,
Upper Beach.
Copper Beach, and what they're at,
what
if
their
they're-
vacancy or
your
vacancy rate is.
rates, that kind of thing.
I don't know. They probably do. I don't know that.
Sure.
I'm assuming in your market research, you've also looked at other locations in the area besides this one that it could,
Around Bowling Green?
Yes.
Yes. We started with this one, and we've looked all around town, the south side, the north side, other areas along Dunbridge, including the west side of Dunbridge and a little farther south. And we couldn't come to terms, or they just weren't willing to sell.
okay. Thank you.
So back to the market thing, I think there's a market here, as well as there's a market to draw people into here from outside.
All right, I appreciate your testimony, Mr. Wagner. Now we have potentially testimony from the public. Any member of the public who would like to address the commission can come forward at this time. Is there anyone who wants to address us on this particular item? All right, doesn't look like it. So we'll move on to discussion among the commission members. Deliberate and eventually we'll have a vote.
As I understand it, we're merely voting to pass this on to city council.
Right.
Recommendation.
So I'm going to say that I will believe that the city council will do their due diligence, and we have highly intelligent members on city council. Because I have a lot of questions regarding this, particularly since it doesn't coincide with what the land use plan said. So I would be comfortable voting for this to go on to city council and let them do their due diligence on this. I understand the need for this type of housing. So I'm going to rely on city council, so.
Okay,
It's fair, but I think we can put stuff on the record to give city council some things to think about.
I think I just did.
Fair. What, I like everything about it. I don't know about the market. The demand, I just don't know. That's is what it is. Assume that it's market demand is there. The only concern I have is just the location. I mean, it looks great, sounds great, probably do have the need. Is that the spot where we want to put this? It's the only concern I have. And I did want to bring up, because I just don't remember, with in a few months now, but with the Garmo's property, what was could you recall what it is zoned and what it was proposed to change?
I think it's zone B2 commercial now, which doesn't allow residential, and I believe he wanted mixed use. And it was a special
did.
district, one of those special
Yeah, he
districts. I
wanted
can't remember if
mixed
it
use.
was, I think it was S2, planned commercial,
sounds right.
which allowed mixed use.
Which was the commercial on the bottom of it.
Mhm.
Right, or it could, I believe it could also allow, though, the full multifamily building. Mhm.
Could be similar
Right.
in that show. And I don't know, it dawned on me, we're looking at this and why, if we didn't want that because it was too far out by about 50 feet, this is much further out. It doesn't jive. That's not to say, again, we don't need it or that it isn't a great spot. It just seems to break up that area. And do we want that to ultimately be a nursing home, a hotel, the courthouse, residential, what other commercial goes in there? That's just a jumbled mess to me. But again, the need may be there. That's my thoughts.
You know, I share your concerns on this, but one thing that I've seen a lot in my job, there's thousands of jobs coming to county. And we don't have enough housing
Right.
That's right.
in the county, and a lot of it's along the I-75.
Right.
So I have mixed feelings about it, but don't think it's probably a bad idea. Consider it, because like I said, there's several thousand good paying jobs. in the county.
Mhm.
yeah, no doubt about that. We saw
Yeah.
in the news recently.
So I'm seeing same sort of development north end of the county. But I think Bowling Green's perfect. I think I would support it. Council.
Might be a good opportunity to valve.
Right.
Helps time in and out.
Yeah, and I think only Stadium View was,
Okay,
yeah, I was just saying only the Stadium View was kind of catering to the working professionals here in the town. And now that is taken over by Mecca, so there are graduate students there. So there is lack of working professional housing here, especially with apartments. So there is a demand there. I did have one question for Heather. With the 7 PG principles, are you applying all these principles to the current property? Is that no means here?
To the proposed zoning.
She tried, it's in there. She tried.
Yeah, like some of this can just be, we don't know, right?
Yes,
Right,
Some
yeah,
other-
Yes,
a lot of
yes,
this, yeah.
yes.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, like
Mhm.
Yes.
indoor sports complex is possible that you might have it.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it a complex, but there will be office center that would have indoor like a fitness center and business center for somebody to go in and use a computer and printer. They don't have one, or take their laptop in there and print some things off. But
Will you
not
have-
necessarily a large sports complex.
Right, something to work out. Bike lanes, jogging path, I believe you probably will have for this kind of.
There'll be sidewalks, yeah, that kind of interconnect all the buildings and then connect over to what, you know, the 10-foot trail that would be out on the frontage.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but you know, like some issues like local flavor or something, we can give them a guidelines to include, maybe use some local artists from here to have some local flavor of art or something. I think shouldn't be that difficult for a company of this size
Yeah.
to include and kind of integrate with our community.
Can I address the location issues you
Sure.
guys brought up? Should have done this a while ago. I think it, and I understand your concern, I guess, that the future land use map shows light manufacturing or assembly. But I think there's already a presence of apartments within that same zone, future land use zone, if you will. You know, apartments to the south. There's commercial uses with Meyer and the hotel. Now you got the Trilogy's nursing home, which would be adjacent to us. You know, it's effectively a residential use. And what we found is, you know, we are a good buffer for like stepping down from like a commercial where the hotel is, and there'll probably be more commercial there since it's general commercial. We'll be that buffer between a commercial, a higher density residential, and a lower density being the nursing home. And then you got the government center, and then potential maybe more multifamily across the street with some light manufacturing then scattered around us or behind us to the west or east. As opposed to maybe building somewhere else in town, which might be next to a single family residential subdivision. They're going to throw up their arms if we propose something in that neighborhood.
Heather, here's a question for you. In the proposed zoning map for the new zoning code, is there vacant property that is designated for R3 development in that zoning map that goes along with the new zoning code, or?
I would
not?
say the majority of the map is in spirit of the current zoning as much as possible. So the only thing that really deviated, if something just didn't make sense, you know, why has this piece been industrial in a neighborhood for so many years? So most of it is the same as what it is today.
Okay, which in my mind probably means that there isn't vacant land that is designated for this high density kind of use currently.
I know we have some on South Main Street. That's only off the top of my head because we have another developer looking at those properties now. So I haven't looked in detail. I think there's some others too, but I couldn't tell you
Okay.
every piece.
Okay, I was just wondering if there are, you know, is land already set aside for this kind of use, or if there's not, to have any of this kind of use, you would have to rezone something sooner or later. Okay, any other comments, ideas?
Just looking at the map, Heather's exactly right. Looks like South Main. There's maybe spots on our side of town, but you'd probably have to I really don't like how isolated this feels. A lot of folks will probably be coming in cars, getting on the highway, off the highway, and maybe that's fine. Maybe that's what we want. We just want the tax base, you know, but we don't have a lot to go on here. We haven't provided
don't?
very much. I don't like that compared to some other applications we've got. We can punt the city council. It does feel like we're kind of not doing our job the way that some other. I think we have content, but we've also given materials to go on, and here I appreciate you being here. What we've been provided, we have a ton to go on. This is a corridor that could go in a lot of different ways, you know, the next few years. So that was
Okay. we've pretty well gone around the table. I think, I know my feeling has been expressed, a mixture of feelings that have been expressed by other people already. I do have some qualms about putting in a use that is not consistent with what the future land plan seems to designate for that area. On the other hand, I think some good points are made about the need for the housing and all the jobs coming into Wood County. And I think an apartment use there could be successful. So it's kind of a mixed bag. So the options then are, we can approve it with city council, with recognizing the city council that we are just more or less punting it to them to give them a chance to decide for themselves.
We can ask that city council review the dialogue from this meeting so they
Yeah.
see what our concerns are. And we have a representative from city council sitting back there taking copious notes. So I'm sure we will be well represented.
Or if we have enough qualms about it, we could always turn it down too. It's one of the options open to us. I don't see any more discussion though, I think I'll go ahead and make a motion for approval and then we'll vote on it. So this is a motion to rezone 20.71 acres located along South Dunbridge Road, just north of 525 South Dunbridge Road, identified as parcel number B07-511-280000015001500 from agricultural zoning classification to R4 multiple family residential high density zoning classification. Whitson Properties LLC, the applicant.
I'll second that motion with the caveat that we are just passing it on to city council and would certainly appreciate their taking study of our dialogue, of our conversation when they voted.
Okay, Jamie, call the roll, please.
Hold on here. I got to be clear for what I'm telling council. I've not had this scenario before. Normally you are recommending approval and you're voting yes. So,
I think at least,
It was yes.
but if you vote no, you're not voting to recommend approval to council.
Right, right.
a
That's
no
what we're
would
saying,
mean-
right?
A no
Okay.
would mean we don't
What-
approve of
who's-
the rezoning.
We don't
You're
approve it.
recommending to council.
We're recommending to council. that we
Okay, I
approve
want to
of
make sure we're all on the
zoning.
same page. Appreciate that.
Okay, Jamie?
No.
Yes.
No,
Yes.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes 4-3. All right, the next thing that was supposed to be on the agenda tonight was an update to the Parks and Recreation section of the master plan. But that item is being continued to next month. So we can bypass that one and move to the next item, public construction. We all have in our packets a list of various road projects that are being anticipated in 2022 for the city. It's a pretty long list. I think rather than read off every single one, I'll just ask if anybody has any questions about any particular project they see there. It's right at the back of your packets if you haven't looked at it before. And then we'll vote for approval on the group as a whole. So certainly it's a more active listing than we've known in the past here, as we're spending a lot of the federal money that we're getting to more or less double the amount of roadways that it's going to be repaved compared to previous years.
I did want to point out though, for the benefit of the public too, is that on the city website, there is an actual webpage dedicated to capital projects for the city that is very interactive and helpful. And you can actually see visuals there and the timeline, where the funds are coming from, the costs. So I thought that's good to point that out. If you have a minute to review that, it's helpful.
Okay. See, besides the list of streets and where they're from and to, that we're talking about, a roundabout at the Campbell Hill intersection of East Wooster Street. That'll get your attention once it's installed.
Roundabouts get my attention, period.
Yeah. Well, they seem to be the thing these days.
Oh,
There's
I'll
a
tell you,
lot
they ought to give
around.
driving lessons on how to get through them.
All right, any questions or comments about the list? All right, well then I'll move that we approve the list of construction projects to city council as they are in this document that Heather has given us.
Second,
Okay. Jamie, please call the roll.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, that motion passes 7-0. Next, we look for our reports. Judy, we have something from the Zoning Board of Appeals.
we did not meet in December. However, we will be meeting next Wednesday, so you're all invited to attend that meeting. And we have a couple of variances on the docket.
All right. Heather, do you have anything for us?
I do. Thank you. So briefly, we will give you an end of the year overview of the planning department. And now that we have community development as part of our department, we will give you a report once that's done. It's going to take some time to compile all the data, but it'll have more specific information about zoning board of appeals, planning commission, the types of permits that we've issued over the years, and give you a comparison to the previous year. So right now, I just gave you a snapshot since our last meeting on how we ended the year. So total permits so far in 2021 was 436 compared to 405 permits issued in 2020. So we were up last year. We had 24 single-family housing starts in 2021 compared to 23 in 2020. So that's basically it. Since we last met, we did approve the Bowling Green Healthcare Real Estate new construction 525 South Dunbridge Road, which we had discussed tonight. So I know if you've gone by there, you'll see that they are working hard on that site. We currently have under review a pretty large project by Skinnell Properties, a new distribution center, and we have addressed that as 2490 Woodstream Drive. So it's comprised of 49 acres. So it does actually have frontage along East Wooster Street and Woodstream Drive. So it's a far-reaching parcel. Subdivisions, we're still reviewing the construction plans for Stonebrook Estates. And as far as our updates here to the different comprehensive plan documents we have going on, the zoning code is obviously our big project, which you saw a draft of Articles 1, 2, 3, and 7 right before the holiday season. So our next presentation, I think I mentioned before, was February 16th by ZoneCo at 6:30 p.m. at City Park, the Veterans Building. We do have a web page dedicated to the zoning code. You can actually type your comments right in there. Anyone can review each article and type their comments in. You can email me. We're again trying to make this as easy as possible for everybody to provide comments. We also hope to have a mapping tool we're looking at with GIS. I don't know if that'll become official. We're trying to figure out an easy way for people to see, what is my property zone now? What could it be zoned? And what does that actually mean? So just be patient with us, as this is all new for us to deal with this pretty complex document. But if you have any specific questions or if you want a copy of anything, please let us know. We know it's a lot of paper. Some of us old school people like me, we like to have printouts. So if you want one, please feel free to reach out and we will do that. Any questions so far about the code?
Yeah.
Yeah,
See
okay.
you later.
Okay. So again, that presentation in February, we hope will be helpful to overview that and answer any questions there too. Court Street, that's one of those topics that we now have the demolition of the administration building at BGSU down. So it's totally different look there. And so wanted to let you know that still is on the radar as a great potential for Court Street and redesigning and envisioning with the city and university and other partners along that corridor. Also, I think we talked briefly about the 2020 census before, but we were up 2.6%. Right now, we do have the census count question resolution program that cities are able to basically ask for some consideration if there's some new data. And as far as Bowling Green goes, I think we're one of the lucky college towns that we actually went up. Several college towns went down in population. It was just the perfect storm with COVID and students not being on campus anymore or off campus. And so I think we're one of the lucky ones. So I'm not foreseeing that there's any indication yet of the city wanting to participate in this resolution program. But again, we still are looking through the data. But again, we're lucky ones. So I feel like all the webinars I've sat on, there's some a lot of concerned college towns out there. I mean, went down 2,000, 3,000, I mean, quite a bit. So that's a little bit of good news for us. Also, Historic Preservation Commission has been really busy, and why I'm giving you an update on that is that you know that you're a part of that ordinance that would locally designate any districts or buildings. And so they are looking at doing some this year, or probably early on. So again, just a heads up, they're still figuring out the process, and of course, you'd be involved and what that looks like. So we'll get to that point at some time. So that is it, unless you have any specific questions for me.
Any questions for Heather? Anything else tonight for the good of the order? Then I'll declare us to be adjourned.
Okay.